So just before the video starts, I wanted to give a quick shout out to what is quite possibly the most apt sponsorship I've ever come across for Vivec. Oftentimes I'll decline, 99.9% of sponsorship deals I come across because I just don't think Raid Shadow Legends is very appropriate for the sort of content on this channel. But I know a lot of you like to fall asleep to these report videos, and that's why I thought these COZYSNUG sleep earbuds from LYTMI really are a match made in heaven for this channel and its viewers. If you're anything like me, you might struggle falling to sleep on your back with conventional earbuds in. I'd always wondered whether there were any designs that facilitated side sleeping without waking up with a perforated eardrum. Not only do these earbuds work wonders for side sleepers, they boast high quality audio, are super lightweight and soft with various different sizes of ear wings to pick and choose from, on top of having 21 hours of charge when using the charging case. So, now you can all quickly and smoothly fall asleep listening to me recount the usual litany of mind-bending, reality-shattering experiences that we all know and love. If you're interested, please check out the link in the description, and don't forget to use the discount code VIVEC for 10% off your order. Anyway, we'll crack on with the video now, but be sure to let me know what you thought of the earbuds if you do end up snatching yourself a pair, and thank you to LYTMI for reaching out, I really appreciate it. The happiest ending to a horrifying trip. A mushroom trip report by Julia, posted to EARBUDS.org July 1st, 2020. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Albert Einstein. Trip background. Names throughout the story have been changed to respect their privacy. My friend Dale and I were planning on doing large doses of mushrooms together. Our friend Missy was to be our sober supervisor, to help us if we needed anything at all that night. Dale planned on taking 6 grams, and I planned on taking 3.5. More than I had ever taken before though. I am well versed in the 0.5 to 1.5 gram world, but was nervous about taking this much following a mildly disturbing trip a week prior with roughly 2 grams. I'd skipped dinner, but had a big lunch about 5 hours before the trip. I felt more confident having Missy there, as she is well experienced and a very calm presence to have around. Here's some personal background. I'm a single 24-year-old woman living a relatively happy life far away from home. I'm active, have wonderful friends, and I love my work. During college, I'd come to terms with my depression that has basically been with me my entire life. My mum died when I was 12 from breast cancer and a brain tumour. She was first diagnosed with this when I was just 6 years old, meaning about half of my life with her was just spent caregiving for her and a terminal disease. The rest of my adolescence was spent trying to fill the role of the woman of the house and channeling all of my emotions into schoolwork. Of course, it wasn't all bad, but it definitely wasn't great. Following college, I moved across the country and almost immediately rescued a dog from the shelter. I've no doubt that he was my soulmate if there ever was one. Roughly a year after adopting him, he became sick with what eventually was diagnosed as jaw cancer. I had to put him down last summer. This was a major setback in my journey trying to tackle my depression. Losing him was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. More on this later. The intention of this trip was relatively innocent. Following some personal frustrations of a budding relationship, I realised that I love torturing myself when it comes to dating. I like to go for men that I know deep down, but won't admit I'm probably too good for. I fall for them anyway too hard, then end up being crushed by them after short periods of time. I grossly overthink things and get carried away with my hopes and expectations before they are ever even communicated. Yet I never learn, and always go back for more. So the question I wanted to ask the mushrooms that night was, why do I like to torture myself so much? The journey they took me on to answer this question went far deeper than I ever thought was possible. The experience. I came up fast and started to hallucinate about half an hour after eating the mushrooms. I was very happy and energetic. I played outside in the rain, hung out in my garden, talking to and touching my flowers, listened to some happy bluegrass music, and chatted with Dale and Missy. I sang along to my music, danced a little bit, and played a little bit of guitar with Dale. Eventually Dale told me I wanted to be alone for a little while, so that left me to refocus and remember the intention of my trip in the first place. Missy told me that she was concerned I wasn't tripping as hard, as she thought 3.5 grams should make me after 2 hours. She mentioned the possibility of giving me a little bit more. I was scared to take more because I was already having a great time socialising and remembered my uncomfortable trip from the previous weekend. And I was also scared to be alone, now that Dale was doing his own thing. I misconstrued the original intention of my trip, and got in my head that the purpose of my trip was actually to face my fears head on. Well, I was scared to eat more mushrooms, and I was scared to be alone. So, I figured I should probably eat more mushrooms and go be alone. Missy gave me 1.5 more grams, and I retreated to my bedroom to eat them, and see what they would tell me to do. I heard Dale playing Pink Floyd while Missy was measuring out my mushrooms for me, and I figured that was a good idea. When I got to my room, I asked Missy to cue up The Dark Side of the Moon, and my mind was completely blown. I was so happy listening to it at full volume, dancing around and singing in my colourful bedroom to an album that was a huge part of my childhood. I had thoughts of me, and realised that I am important, and that it was okay to focus on me right now. I remembered how much I love to sing, and how big of a role music plays in my life. I had thoughts of, I am loved, I do love, I am love, while dancing, and I repeated this mantra to myself very often. I've always been scared of the album The Wall. For one, it's a terrifying album to begin with, but now it triggers lots of uncomfortable and painful memories. I asked Missy to cue the album up in its entirety after The Dark Side of the Moon, because I was still convinced that I needed to face all of my deepest fears that night. The songs Mother and Comfortably Numb have always been difficult for me to listen to since my mother's passing. After losing my mum, my dad still played and sang Mother on his guitar all the time, and I never told him how much it truly bothered me. I bought The Wall when I was in middle school, and I vividly remember going directly to the hospital from the record store to proudly show it off to my mum and play it for her. She was barely lucid, and she tried to sing along to Comfortably Numb with me while holding my hand, and I was determined to listen to the album that terrifies me the most during this trip. I felt that if I could make it through the whole album, I could beat whatever was wrong with me. While The Dark Side of the Moon was still playing, I started looking through an old notebook on my nightstand that had started as a dream journal. This became a regular journal, and had eventually petered out to serve as random scrap paper for various notes and scribbles over the past year or so. I knew that I had written some very angry passages about a man I was previously involved with, who was a very, very bad guy. This man had degraded me, shattered my sexual self-esteem, and had left me emotionally scarred in too many ways to count. I was determined to go back and read the words I hadn't thought about since they were written. I felt as if I needed to relive these evil experiences to beat them or move on from them. On the way to find those passages, I read about a dream I wrote about the 9th anniversary of my mother's death. It seemed like a happy dream, with great friends and happy memories. It even mentioned snuggling and playing with my childhood dog, who we had lost about 6 years prior to the dream. This got me thinking about my own dog that I'd lost to cancer at 3 years old, less than a year ago. I asked Missy and Dale to grab me my box of his things out the garage so I could smell him and feel him with me. I felt that if I let out all my emotions about my dead dog right there and then, that I would be able to move on and be okay. Then The Wall started, and I was elated. I was so excited to be tackling this album, these songs that had been haunting me for over half of my life. I continued dancing around and yelling and singing. Mother eventually came on, and I instantly got sad. I went to the bathroom, stayed there for a little while, then made myself go back into the bedroom. I needed to get through this album. I finally turned the music down a little bit. My sadness had turned into fear and panic. I was sweating uncontrollably and needed to do something about it. I brought the music to the dark bathroom and took a cold shower. I returned to my room, soaking wet, naked and freezing, standing in front of my fan, running full blast. I looked at my warm and cozy bed, but wouldn't let myself get in it. I looked at the warm and cozy clothes that I had laid out for myself before the trip, but would not let myself put them on. I was shivering, and the scary music was still playing. I finally, physically took a step backwards and realised that I was literally, physically torturing myself. In that moment, I told myself that this is what I needed to be doing in order to get through this miserable album. After a bit of this, I eventually put a t-shirt on and decided enough was enough. I made my way to Missy's room and tried to explain to her what had been going on. I felt myself starting to go into a panic attack. She got me into bed with her, held me, soothed me, and eventually I let myself give in while realising it is okay to need people sometimes. Missy asked me lots of questions that I did not have the capacity to answer. All I could get across was that I was feeling bad, dark energies. No one thing in particular, not even a scattering of thoughts, just bad. She told me that we should reset my surroundings and play some calmer music and turn some lights on. But we didn't make it that far. She posted up in the living room with me and started hearing me out. I then experienced every wave of emotion. I told Missy things about my mother that I hadn't told anyone before or barely even dared to think about. I am so scared of forgetting my mother. However, my most vivid memories of her are extremely traumatizing and horrifying and excruciatingly hard to think about. I finally accepted that I am traumatized. Instead of denying it or insisting that being tough means I can't be affected by trauma, I am deeply affected by this trauma, and always will be. I cried fully and deeply about my dog, and everyone I have lost in this life and how it is so hard to continue living without them here. Missy reminded me that darkness is just a curtain. All you need to do is pull it aside to see the light. I admitted that I have had passive suicidal thoughts, i.e. long drives home at night as a teenager, thinking what if I just keep driving straight off the road instead of turning with this curve. Hell, I even had that thought last week driving down a Colorado mountain pass at 10 PM. Missy told me she does not believe that these are in fact suicidal thoughts. She told me she believes that I know how fragile life is more than anyone, and that I realise how something I actually hold so precious could be gone in an instant. Finally admitting these thoughts that have existed for years to myself and out loud immediately removed a massive weight off my chest. I realised that Missy was absolutely right, that I truly love life, and that I never have had thoughts of how I won't be missed, how nobody truly loves me, how the world will be better off without me in it, etc., because I know that I am truly loved by those in my life. Things are slowly starting to come together here. Thoughts of, I am loved, I do love, I am love, make their way back into my mind. Missy, still sitting there with me, was living proof that I am loved. We continued talking about my hard-ass upbringing and a strict, emotionless family. We also talked about the good things in my upbringing. Throughout the trip, I realised more and more how influential music truly has been in my life. My dad plays guitar and loves to sing, and our house was always filled with music. He and I even had a game we would play in the car when a song came on the radio. The first one to correctly name the song and band won. Over the years I started to beat him more and more often, and I still remember when he finally admitted that my musical education is complete. I was so proud. My brother is an insanely talented musician. He's one of those genius types you only see in movies or read about in books. He's heavily influenced my musical taste and standards. I played in the school band growing up, but mostly I loved singing in the jazz choir and singing to myself. I am terribly self-conscious of my voice though, for no good reason. But singing makes me happy, and I'm going to do it more from now on. I want to be a creator, and finally get serious about learning how to play guitar well enough to sing along and play some simple jams with friends. I realised I have recently given up on learning guitar because I'm coming to terms with actually missing a man that I was with this past winter. He meant more to me than I wanted to admit, and his leaving hurt me more than I wanted to admit. He was a wonderful guitar player with a wonderful voice, and I loved the music he brought into my world, and I do miss him terribly. But I only hope the best for him now. Falling asleep that night, I thought about him once more. Even though I miss him, he hurt me in a big way, and I do not deserve to have anyone in my life that can treat the people that care about them so very badly. Missy continuously asked why I'm so mean to and hard on myself. I admitted that I don't want to be happy. I can say I want to be happy all I want, but I know it's not true. I recalled 2 recent events of close friends telling me how generous they think I am. I don't see myself this way, and admit that I don't actually want to. I told her more about losing my dog. She commented on all the parallels between caregiving for him and ultimately losing him to cancer, just like with my mum. I hysterically cried more and more, and felt more weight being released from my chest. I had jokingly thrown out, while drinking with buddies a couple times over the past few weeks, that losing my dog was the hardest thing I have ever gone through. I'd been thinking about it more, immediately feeling guilty because, how could losing a dog be worse than losing a parent? Then, in that moment, I came to realise it is the honest-to-God truth. Though losing my mother was excruciatingly painful and will forever haunt me, I know I always have my family to fall back on. I always had and always will have my brother and dad. I went through it with both sets of my grandparents, my aunts and uncles and cousins, all of my friends and all of her friends. She was so very loved by everyone who knew her, and we all suffered this loss together. When it came to caretaking for and losing my dog, I had never felt more alone. He was mine and mine alone. No one had, and no one could, ever understand the relationship we shared. He was my responsibility. I was supposed to take care of him and save him, but I could not. No matter what I did, I couldn't save him. I was his mother, and I failed him. At some point, Comfortably Numb came on in the background. I told Missy the story of my mum in the hospital, and she offered to change it for me. I told her no, and we listened to it together. While we continued to talk, the rest of the war finished quietly in the background. I made it through the album that scares me the most of all. All I needed was a friend by my side. Things got better from there. My panic had completely subsided by this time, and I was ready to listen to Missy's guidance. She told me I should think about treating myself like a little kid. How would you feel if you treated your 8-year-old self like you treat yourself now? I told her, well, I would feel like a complete monster. She asked me all of the right questions and helped me to reflect on everything I had learnt during the trip. What fascinates me the most is the way the mushrooms had to make me physically torture myself to make me understand how I'm treating myself emotionally. I realised that my self-torture is much deeper than superficial boy problems. I mentally torture myself in every way and refuse to let myself be happy, because I'm so comfortable and familiar with my misery. I'm stuck in this depressive cycle with no desire to get out, and I now realise that it is harder for me to be happy than sad or angry. So if I can't be happy, then I might as well focus on making myself miserable, because at least then I'm in control of something. I am so proud of myself for removing myself from my wet, naked, shivering, overstimulated and terrified state, and getting warm and seeking help in my friends. It feels very symbolic in that I never have to be alone if I don't want to be. I don't have to continuously torture myself or beat myself up, because it is a truly miserable state to be in, and I hated feeling trapped in that situation, just like I've been feeling trapped in my own depressive cycle. Now, I know that all I have to do is ask for help, and my friends who love me will be more than willing. It is okay to need people. It is okay to not be okay. It's how you handle not being okay that matters. It is impossible to fully describe how empowering, powerful, moving, humbling, transformative and life-changing this trip was for me. In short, my takeaways from this journey are that I need to start treating myself how I treat my friends, because I am a wonderful friend. If I wasn't, I would not have so many amazing and loving people in my life. Music is everything. Love is everything. I am loved, I do love, I am love. I need to be kinder to myself. Ego and self-love are in fact different things. Self-love is not selfishness. The way to beat your demons is not with anger. Facing them head on does not need to be malicious, spiteful, or hateful. My demons are a part of me, and therefore I must love them like I love myself. Approach them calmly, and work with them to free myself of them forever. This trip was by no means a cure-all, but it has given me endless things to think about and work on and towards. Once you get the message, hang up the phone. I wrote a quick journal entry at the end of the night before bed. I thought it was incredibly sweet and I'd love to share it. I love singing, and mushrooms and Missy. Sing more, actually learn guitar. Love on your demons, instead of feeling like you need to tackle them. Facing things doesn't need to be angry or scary. You can have a nice, rational and loving conversation with them, and just tell them to go away, please. I love you. I fell asleep with a smile on my face, for the first time that I can remember. I've got to say, for me personally, that might be one of the most powerful trip reports I've ever read. I related to this on an emotional, psychological, spiritual level in ways I can't even begin to describe. The way this lady articulated how her emotional baggage was propagated by her literal attachment to the state of like doomerism, the state of misery, is so very relatable for me. I know I'm a bit of a doomer. I like my shoegaze. I like the sort of depressing, miserable films and art. That's my favourite sort of stuff. And not only do I enjoy it on an artistic and entertainment level, recently when I've had trips or just had moments of profound contemplation, I've really tapped into the root cause of why I do love all this doomer shit. And I had to be honest with myself one day, and I was like, I think I am the one preventing myself from being happy. I just watched a fantastic television show called Mad Men, and one of the themes running throughout that with the main character Don Draper is that he has all of these great things materially and even like emotionally, has great friends, great relationships, and he consciously blocks out his ability to connect with other people, even though that's what he really wants. It's definitely something with me. Like, I very much have a vast network of loving friends. I've got a brilliant YouTube audience. I'm inundated with messages of love and appreciation. I have a loving family and the best friends you could ever ask for, and I literally love them to death. But I talked about this in my video when I was in Japan, where I just had to admit to myself one day when I really contemplated it without psychedelics or anything. In fact, it happened in Japan while I was meditating. I realised that I don't actually love myself to the extent that I should. I'm lacking in self-love. And for many years, I sort of had this very toxic spiritual perspective where I had to be completely egoless at all times. And I was really just trying to not think like a human at all, because I thought, oh, this is going to add to my ego, because I had a massive ego as a youth and a teenager. Sort of like a victim mentality ego rather than a narcissistic ego. I was the nerdy, incel, anime, obsessed gamer weirdo in school that nobody talked to until I guess I got into partying and became more extroverted, and I guess just sort of honed my charisma and etc. But I've, no matter through any of that, I never had any sort of like ego baggage. Of course I got an ego, and of course I've got some level of ego. I'm a fucking YouTuber. There's gonna be some ego there. But I do try to maintain a level of modesty, but sometimes I think to the nth degree where I feel like sometimes I'm so humble and so modest that it's because I don't actually love myself enough. And that what was a great, my favourite quote my favourite quote here was, what fascinates me the most is the way the mushrooms had to make me physically torture myself to make me understand how I'm treating myself emotionally. I related to that deeper than I think I've ever related to any trip report, because I was at a festival a few years ago. I took quite a few mushrooms, just a big handful of Liberty Caps, no idea the dosage whatsoever. Didn't kick in for ages. I literally turned to my mate and said, "Oh, these mushrooms aren't very strong, are they?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm not really feeling anything." Within that second, they hit me all at once, and I felt myself about to pass out. I ran to my tent. I literally passed out running into my tent. I was in the fetal position, literally in complete and utter agony. It was the most hellish experience I have ever been through in my whole life, and let me tell you, I've had some very emotionally hellish and physically hellish experiences, and that was something else. That was like being tortured by a demon. It would come and go, and the worst part was it would be literally the most painful thing in the world. It would relieve itself, and I was like, oh, thank God I can just lay here now and just be depressed. But every single time I would do that, when it came back, it would get worse, and it was physically torturing myself to make me get out of the tent and face reality and face love. Because when I got out, there was my best mate. I was at a festival full of my favourite music, a festival I'm a part of and I'm intrinsically linked with. I have so much respect and admiration from all these people here. And I know that I'll never turn it into an ego. I need to just, like the person said here, how would you feel if you treated your 8-year-old self like you treat yourself now? And I'd say the same. I'd feel like a complete monster. Why would I want to do that to something I love? I need to love myself. It's crazy. I had a beautiful conversation with one of my best friends the other day about my ongoing ketamine addiction, and the words he used were just so inspiring. You're so much better than this. You know that you can do it deep down. You literally know it. No matter how much you say, "Oh, I can't live life without it," or "What's the point? The meaningless is gone." He was telling me, he was like, "You're the most resilient, like, health obsessed person ever. As soon as you get this sorted, the next chapter of your life begins, and you have the power to do it." And I genuinely said to him, I was like, "Mate, you know what? That actually meant so much to me, because you're telling me exactly what, like, my higher self has been trying to tell me." Unfortunately, sometimes my lower self dominates my mode of thought. And another really this almost brought me to tears, the end of the report. I fell asleep with a smile on my face for the first time that I can remember. I suffer with insomnia, and the amount of times I fear going to bed through sleep paralysis and just being up for ages and ages and ages, and all of the things I have to do to get to sleep. And I've developed a fear around sleep. I've developed a negativity aura surrounding my own slumber. So what's this teaching me? This is teaching me, through this trip report and a reflection on my psychedelic experiences, is I need to just go easy on myself. There's so many things that I should love about myself, and obviously I just hope that everybody listening to this commentary report understands where I'm coming from, and they probably do, because you're all very super intelligent, super wise selection of geezers and geezettes. And as the lady put it here, ego and self-love are in fact different things. Narcissism and self-love are diametrically opposed. I can self-love. My self-love is the love of all selves. How can I love you lot and my friends and my family to the best of my ability if I can't even love myself to the extent that I need to? And this is the journey of the spiritual path, isn't it? Your own worst enemy is you. The war is up here. The war has always been up here in my mind, and it continues to proliferate. But I'm also thankfully cognizant through my spiritual experiences and just personal development journey that I know that you can only run away from love for so long. The devil never wins. He's playing a futile game, and the devil within me can never win. He will eventually be vanquished, but instead of me berating him, I need to face him with love. What an amazing way to go through facing your fears in the method that they did here. The way they manifested overcoming their shadow, in a sense, through this trip was exceptional. So many elements to it. The album that brings about the trauma, finally talking about these deep things rooted in their subconscious, deeply rooted in the back of it that they never talk to anyone about it, probably don't even talk to themselves about it, and they talked about it one of the best mates. This is the process of healing. It literally is. Like my conversation with my mate the other day when we finally talked about it, it was like, look, right, Viv, I need to, as if they call me Viv, look, right, I need to tell you about, I'm worried about you, and I always worry about you, and you're my most inspirational friend, and you're the most ambitious out of all of us. You're the last person we want to see fail. We don't want to see any of our mates fail at all, because we all love each other unconditionally. You wouldn't believe the love we have between our friends. It's something very special. But I guess, like, on a level, I am sort of the spearhead, the figurehead of the tribe, and as much as I give them all this beautiful advice, and convey the magnificence of consciousness and God and life in the universe and what they are, I need to embody this, because for me to be a guide, a teacher, a leader, I need to embody the things that I convey. And right now, I do not to my full extent, but I shall be working on that 100%. This is my journey in life. So, wow, I loved that trip report so much. It was so well written, it was engaging, and it was another great example of a sub-heroic dose being able to induce such profound, life-changing insights in you. Oh, awesome. This is one of the reports I'll just read again in my own spare time, because it really hit home. I've been through many of these similar trips. What I need to do now is keep remembering them, integrating them, and moving forward, because what else can we do in life but keep moving forward? I watched a brilliant film the other day called Memoir of a Snail. Go and watch it if you watch Mary and Max, the stop motion Australian animated film from 2009. It's by Adam Elliott. This is his new film. I don't know if it's out in cinemas or other means, but please go and support it, find it somehow. It's the best film I've seen all year and a long time. And there was a brilliant segment of it. I don't want to spoil it entirely, but it made an analogy for the personal development path and the path of a snail. A snail never retreads its own trail. And as humans, for us to grow, we need to keep moving forward. Sometimes we'll slip back as humans. Sometimes humans can slip back on the trail. But with enough consciousness and love and understanding and vision, we'll always make our way back onto the path and eventually reach the infinite singularity that is God and love and truth. I'm going to end on this quote by David Lynch that ties into the very first quote that this person, Julia, featured at the start of the report. So the original quote was, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it," by Albert Einstein. A man that was super mystical, super mystically inclined, wise beyond his years, not just on a level of IQ, but you can tell his emotional intelligence was something else. A very wise man who understood the magic of reality and not just the nuts and bolts relative domain. But here's a quote by my favourite director, David Lynch, that I believe is a great addendum to that quote. Anyway, love you guys, and see you on the other side.
If you have a golf ball-sized consciousness, when you read a book, you'll have a golf ball-sized understanding. When you look out, a golf ball-sized awareness. And when you wake up in the morning, a golf ball-sized wakefulness. But if you could expand that consciousness, then you read the book, more understanding. You look out, more awareness. And when you wake up, more wakefulness. It's consciousness. And there's an ocean of pure, vibrant consciousness inside each one of us. And it's right at the source and base of mind, right at the source of thought, and it's also at the source of all matter.